Music scores our lives, and if you're incredibly lucky as an artist, you get an album that scores culture. We're living in a time where we are constantly being perceived and judged all of the time. I hope that people that feel connected to EUSEXUA will take away from it a sense of freedom, a sense of liberation. It feels like a matter of survival. Hi, Imogen. How are you?
Very good. You know, just hanging out in a car park, in a warehouse.
We first bumped into each other on Broadway Market. It was actually in lockdown, wasn't it?
It was.
And I remember you came bounding up to me and we were talking in the street, and you'd said to me, because you had a young child at the time, and you said to me that you had been playing unicorns and badgers for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's probably about right.
You said that you've been playing unicorns and badgers.
Yeah.
And then we sort of like dived into like a fairly like intense and deep conversation straight away. I remember that.
Yeah, I think I needed to
speak to an adult.
Yeah. Not any adult, I might add. No, I loved that. We had this very long walk, didn't we? We walked around the canal, went all around. I love your album, EUSEXUA.
EUSEXUA.
EUSEXUA. As I understand from a little search, is the definition of nowness, the definition of beauty and awe in the moment of heightened kind of
human experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had a friend about 6 years ago. My friend said to me, you know, Twigs, you could be like the next Grace Jones, you know, like everything you do can be so iconic. We think about people like Eartha Kitt or Grace Jones or Marilyn Monroe, these like really iconic women who everything they did was just so free. It felt free.
Yeah.
It felt free. Even like Marilyn Monroe on like The Vent, it felt in that moment just like a spur of the moment idea. And I said it's impossible in this day and age because everything is watched and everything is scrutinized 24/7. So it's really difficult, I find, for an artist of our times to have moments of spontaneity. That's for me where EUSEXUA came about, because I was living in Prague. No one knew who I was. Like, if they did, they literally did not care. And I was going out and I was having these really healing moments in my head about who I was right then, right now. And things were coming up for me that I hadn't felt in years, since I was a child, like being able to like dance funny, you know, being able just to like move my body in like a very strange and incredible way. And that was completely fine in this club because everyone was doing the same thing. And collectively, we were like this amoeba of culture and expression and of letting go. And I just had this burning desire, if I couldn't make people feel that, at least explain, invent, create a word in which they could imagine it.
To be aware of there's a that is a thing that we can be.
Yeah. We can be free, and I think EUSEXUA as a concept, it's so incredibly powerful, but also so incredibly dangerous, because I think once the human race realizes that they can constantly be on the path to EUSEXUA, everything kind of dismantles. Because
everything's dismantling anyway, though.
So it is dismantling.
If it's just going to get like
but everything can dismantle because all of a sudden we just don't care, and we can be.
I don't know all of your work, right? But I love you, and every time I hear something of yours, I go, oh, I should really check out all of her music. But we rarely do that, right? Like musicians, to be honest, we don't really listen to music that much. Some people do. With your record last night, I was tired because I hadn't slept for a while, as we do. But I felt so energized after it, I didn't sleep until 5 a.m. And had all these thoughts. I had a shower and I wrote down some notes, and the points that I feel you're talking about are the points when we don't think. They're the points when we have no thought to kind of label it and make it less of what it is. Because if you're looking at something beautiful, or you're feeling something beautiful, or you're in the flow with something or someone, whether that's swimming or in sex or in music or dance or whatever, there's no thought involved. There's no like this is a label of a thing. It's just like you're going into something, you're kind of being pulled in, and you feel more than, you know, this structure of DNA and like atoms. For me, when that name came up, I just thought she is encapsulating that thing that I also am like desperate to try to bring more about of in my life.
Imagine a world where you make an amazing art piece, or you learn something, or you practice something, and you don't post it online. Imagine a world where you do something, but imagine a world where you do something and it's purely for the joy of being present and doing it for yourself.
You came through dance.
Yeah.
And music through dance. My experience of dance is like going to some raves when I was younger.
Yeah.
And that was my passion when I was just like, I have to just go on these all-night raves. So where is dance for you? Where does it, I don't know, wow.
Well, I started dancing when I was 7, and I was professional by the time I was 12. I was in dance competitions and...
What kind of dance? Like
ballet, tap, modern, like all of the... I was very classically trained when I was young, and then as I got older, I started to despise dance, actually. I started to despise the rules around it, and I despised how one's body had to look a certain way or be a certain way to do different forms. And then I started to really explore movement. And then through movement, I discovered wushu and pole dancing and crumping and voguing. And then I discovered community through that. You know, each album cycle I do, there's always a skill that I learn, a craft. LP1 was voguing. Magdalene was pole and wushu. I started to think about, when making the album, these 11 pillars that hold up EUSEXUA. And the 11 pillars were aspects of my life that I felt if I looked at and if I made adjustments to, then I could be closer to EUSEXUA. And for me, EUSEXUA is creating purely and unabashedly. It's feeling more comfortable in my body. Sexually, it is just, being more present and being able to be at that pinnacle of human experience as much as I possibly can. I mean, it would be impossible to be 24 hours a day, but I want to know that I can tip into it whenever I want to. So I created these 11 pillars and made up these words for them.
I'd like to ask you about one particular pillar.
Really?
The 24-hour dog pillar.
Oh.
I have some questions I would like to ask you. So
I started to, So I started to, almost like adjacent to the album, make up these words. For example, croning, which is an addiction to technology, and it's when technology not only takes over your time and takes over your physical activity, but also starts to, it's like you don't know where the algorithm begins and where you end, or you don't know what is your opinion or what is something that's being fed to you. And so I made up this like movement that if I was sitting here with you now and having a lovely time, but I actually wanted to look at Instagram, I could rub my hand to myself, and that would be a reminder.
You're doing that a lot. No, joking.
That would be like a reminder to stay present.
Yeah.
And that would be Q1, and then Q2 would perhaps be like rubbing all over my body in the morning for 11 minutes, and I call it a presence wash. And it basically just reminds me that I am here and I am now, and that I don't need anything else, any devices other than myself, essentially. But so I made up this 11-step somatic healing program, which is a lot of gyrating and shaking and incredibly raw and primal movement. You can kind of like just find your own spot. Okay, so one thing that I always find really helpful about keychain is you have this movement coming up, you know, like the bounce coming up, and I find like it's really good to be like truthful about how your breath and the bounce is bringing your arms up. So when you come up, with each bounce, I like to almost imagine my arms are going up on a shelf, but the bounce has to make it happen. Does that make sense? So like if you're going like this, you'll see that your arms naturally want to go up, and each time it's like it kind of goes up on a shelf. As you come down, like you come over your head and you come down here, I really like to vocalize. I don't know, like it's okay to, yeah, exactly. And I often really think about as well just how the shaking enables your nervous system to A, relax, but I like to visualize the things I want to get rid of. So say for intake, if you know that you don't watch a lot of like trash TV or something, then think about the things that you actually want to bring in, whether that's like you love like anime or like beautiful films or dance videos, or think about those things and then like bring it to the top, and then as you come down, I like to like really think to let go of the things that I don't want to, you know, like do anymore, and just be very present with it.
How did these sounds come out of you, with you? How do you choose the people that you've worked with on this record? Are they all people that you've worked with before? Are they people that you've always been wanting to work with? And I know you do so much of it yourself, and you could tell, because it's just like, it sounds like you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fussy about sound, and I think in the early stages of my career, like I was really very like hands-on in the engineering actually, and I could be like very possessive about the way that things were done from like a kind of technical point of view. And as I've wanted to concentrate on songwriting and on my voice and grow in other areas, so I've had to really be very specific about who I choose to collaborate with and work with people that will really listen to me and people that will really honour the collaboration and I guess like sometimes allow me to like wear them as a producer suit, which can be uncomfortable for some producers, like especially men. You know, that allow me with my little like slinky body to like sit inside them and like, you know, and be able to use their skill and their knowledge, which is, you know, often technically like beyond actually what I have. But in meeting Lewis, I felt like it was a real meeting of minds in terms of the way that he produces and the way that I produce as well. It's just like, he's truly become one of my best friends. And we spent 3 years together making the record, and we went to such strange places. You know, we recorded Waves in Ibiza, and we went to Big Sur, and we had these bizarre month-long trips in the wilderness with no Wi-Fi and no electricity. And
yeah, it's such a journey. I know it's such a cliche thing to say, but it feels like you've been around the world. It feels like you've been in these micro, you know, ecosystems with people for this period, and that you were over here and you did this thing. You weren't just sat in a studio.
No, we weren't. I really took advantage of signing to Atlantic to go and make something really weird. Yeah, I did. I mean, this is my first record signed to a major label, and I was like, okay, I can't. Let's do this properly, and let's make something really vast and really experimental and honest, and let's go places.
I love that you did that, because why should life go on hold? You know, when you make the record, which is your like expression of your deepest self, and that time where aren't we lucky to be able to share that, and that's our life, you know, and that's all of our life. As much as we can get out of it, you know, do that. And to take yourself into places where you are honouring living life, not in the, you know, in one place, kind of just being in there with this studio, but taking the studio with you and just wrapping the world around and fusing figure of eights everywhere.
Exactly, and all the people that come in and their life experiences coming into that space and sort of affecting the moods. And that was so interesting, because it really was Corliss and I at the centre of it. Then all these wonderful friends could come in, whether it's, you know, like AOD or Felix or Tushel and OG Volta and Marius, like these Earth Eater, Bapari, these incredible people like drop in for like a few days or for a week, and they'd almost create this massive mess that used to really stress Lewis out a lot, because he's a very solitary creator. You know, he lives in Wales and he makes music completely alone and will not speak to anyone for 2 weeks at a time, and that's not the way that I make music. So I really would force him, and I would say to everyone, I'd be like, send all your files to Lewis. I'd be like, go on, airdrop them to him, and I could just see him like, with like the sessions, with the sessions. But then we'd sit together, and I would will him. I would sit behind him, and I would will him to sort it out.
Whip him.
No, well, I would just will him to sort it out. This like incredible mess of these stems from different people, and I would just think, you can do it, Lewis. I'd say, you can do it. I'd be like, go on.
You did. I mean, you did. That's such a great, beautiful.
Yeah, it's a great team. We were really a magical team.
What I was going to ask you, because this is kind of like, there's a lot of time shifting, a lot of like granular sampling, a lot of kind of like slowing down vocals and lengthening time with these beautiful reverbs. There's like a lot of, it's almost like you're physically playing with yourself as time. but I love the unpredictable nature of the fact that it's more like a thread of thought. Each piece of music on it. It's not like, oh, and there's the chorus, and there's the verse, and there's the chorus. You often like go off on a completely weird tangent that you weren't expecting. And I can't remember. I have to remember the name of the song. I think it started off with this piano. It's like in the middle. And then I was like, God, this is so lovely. And then out of nowhere, it just kind of went into this really distorted, like gnarly
Keep it holding.
Yeah. I just thought that I started to laugh just because it just excites me when somebody surprises me. Yeah. It feels playful. It feels like you've just kind of gone, you know, I'm just going to live now.
Yeah. When I first started making music, I first started releasing music was with my dear friend and collaborator Tick, and you know, he had this incredible way of time bending on the guitar, and that's songs like Hide or Ache or Breathe or some of my earlier work. Like he had this incredible way of really suspending the note to the very last minute. And then I had this rickety drum machine that actually Tick introduced me to, The Tempest. By Dave Smith, and it always had syncing problems with Ableton. This is like early Ableton days.
Still syncing problems.
Still syncing problems. But also The Tempest, it kind of has this life of its own, which in its early days, or in my early days of making music, we just had to really embrace. And so a lot of my songs were off-grid. We actually had to take them to Liam Howe of Sneaker Pimps and have him help us align them slightly and have them not necessarily on grid, but not on grid.
Yeah.
You know, and then with live shows and all these things, we had to find a way of playing electronic music, but essentially with no beat. And then that's when the SPD pads came in, and I felt like I was one of the first artists of that era, at least, to experiment with the way that live music was played, in terms of there would be a kick over there. Like Cyan would play a kick on that SPD pad, and then LJ would do the snare, and then somebody else would do like one part of the synth and the other person would finish the line, and it meant that on stage it was this feeling of always like you're fighting for your life with the beat. But incredibly, that's incredibly sexy. You know, it's so sensual to make music in that way. And then as I think had more success and went in with bigger producers, it's like you're kind of told those things are wrong. You know, you're told like, no, like you have to make music with a click. Don't be so silly, or you know, what's the BPM? And you're like, I don't know, somewhere between. And so I felt for a few years in the middle of my career quite reined in by the way that you're perhaps supposed to do things. And being a dancer, I don't really care about any of that stuff, because when your body's the instrument, there are no mistakes, and you can go from a classical song to a punk song to a dance song in a matter of moment. And you'd be surprised, like your body does like that and follow that and is down for the change. And I think that's with this record where I felt I really found a lot of liberation in terms of breaking the rules.
There was a moment, I think, with Hide and Seek. When I made that song, I felt, oh, no one's going to like this. This is me being totally self-indulgent, and it hasn't got any beats, and it's going to be the least favourite of everyone's. And the fact that it was everyone's most favourite, the one that's had the most legs and the most reach, because it has the most space for people to find themselves in it. And I do agree, this kind of, the click, the dreaded click, everything is kind of, we are more and more being kind of brought into this machine world, into these formats, into these boxes, into these data sets. It's all very like must make sense for the computers, but that's why I feel like more and more we struggle as people to cope with this kind of boxed 90 degrees life of like you must be here on time, and then there's this thing over here, and you've got to try and squeeze it all into the schedule.
Well, exactly.
And that's what I love about your music, is it feels more human, yet it's got such, it has a certain sound, which everything has this kind of soft, like frayed edge, like slightly, I can't describe, it's like...
I call it the pussy.
The what?
The pussy.
The pussy.
Like I always feel like, I always say, especially like when working with a lot of like male producers, I always say it needs more pussy, like I want more like ephemeral, soft edges, like more all-encompassing kind of beautifulness, and that's like the feminine, I think it's like the feminine touch and the feminine energy within my music that I'm always really fighting for. Yeah. EUSEXUA is really this mixture of this slightly like psychedelic, childlike, playful exploration of what it is to be human, but then mixed with that, this raw, dirty, hard, sexual grit as an undertone, and
which is what it's like to be human.
Which is what it's like to be human. I wanted to show you the 11 in action.
Yeah.
So Mind State's actually one of my favorites because it's about taking time to work on things in your personality that you like or you don't like. So you might say, oh, you know, I like that I'm a very generous person, so I'm going to, you know, take half an hour to honor that, to think about that today, to think about my generosity, to think about how that makes me feel good, to think about how that helps others. And then you go into Mind State. If you want to do it in public and have nobody know, then you can just kind of like put your hand on your chest. It could also be something that you want to work on, like anxiety or patience.
So kind of what you value, but also what you might want to work on.
Exactly. So if you spot something you want to value about yourself or something that you want to work on, you can just put your hand on your chest. And then the bigger movement that you can do at home is kind of like this twisting, slapping movement, like this.
Slap.
You can get quite into it.
But not near the
I like to fully go for it, you know? I like to fully go to it. Really, yeah.
Can I put my start?
You can like fully get into it.
Yeah, you feel a lightness.
You do already.
There's a lightness, yeah.
Even after 30 seconds,
Yeah.
you feel a little bit different.
Yeah.
Imagine if you did it for 11 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm a bit jealous. I want to do it. It is quite nice. You can do whatever it is you feel. So, yeah, that's Mind State.
I mean, this one is really great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Amazing.
The most success or calm or resonance or whatever, all the things, comes when we go where the love is. Meaning we go where there's a pull, we go where there's an intuition or a feeling that's slightly vague, but if we can't hear it because we're just facing this thing on our screen, or we're being like, you know, kind of boxed in by some label or whatever, to believe we have to be this way, that this is the way things are happening, you have to do this, and then you'll be a success for them, but you'll be a wreck for you. Curious. I had an experience that changed my life in regards to noise recently. I think I talked to you about it maybe briefly in your living room. I had started on this song to try to like impress someone that I met on some dating app. But he wasn't into me in that way. He liked other types of ladies who are muscly and very submissive. Oh. But anyway, I liked him very much. So I made this piece of music initially for him. And he wasn't actually that impressed, sadly. But that was good, because it kind of urged me to find something deeper, find something less showy. He recognised the facade, basically. There was me going, and he was not interested in that. And I love that about him, that he spoke directly and said, I don't like that because it does this, and I don't like...
The music?
Yeah. And I was like, I felt it. I was like, I agree.
Yeah.
So then he played me this track afterwards. By this artist called Prurient. It's a good word. It was called Despiritualized. And it lasts for half an hour. Mm-hmm. And it was like noise. And it had this very unpredictable nature about it. You know, it's kind of ironic that I spent my whole entire life making harmony and melody sound pretty and lots of things to listen to and get excited about. Yeah. But the one thing that made me like almost be possessed, like there was something inside me that was moving around, like a child in my body. Yeah. Like that's what it felt like. I was giving birth to something. And I was totally sober. I was just writhing around on the floor, like arching my back and just like eyes rolling back, listening to this piece of music. It's just noise. It's just this like incessant, like you can't think. It's just like taking over. And again, it comes back to this like explorations in sex, more recently with the kind of anonymous stuff. So I really love 24 Hour Dog. I thought I was like, maybe I got it all wrong. And
No,
I'm just
no,
like
you got it.
impressing my own.
No,
But I
no,
really
you
thought
got
that
it
was amazing.
completely right. And I think when Chorus came up with that first synth line, it's just one of those sounds, it's so metallic and it goes completely through you.
Yeah.
And Lewis and I, Chorus, would always laugh in the studio because I get so viscerally affected by those metallic sounds as well. And I have done throughout the whole of my musical artistry, and I feel when I'm more in tune with myself, those metallic sounds like shoot through my body because I'm in my body and I feel connected to it. And when I'm off, like when things are going wrong in my life or when I'm not connected to myself, I'm not so in tune with those metallic sounds, but it brings me back to my love of just like analog music and things which can be manipulated by the human touch and things that feel like organs, like breathing. It's like your heart, there is a rhythm, but I'm sure it's not perfect. I'm sure your sound like resonates at a note which is so beautiful, but it doesn't perfectly fit into a scale, and that's how I felt with that synth on 24 Hour Dog of like, wow, like I need to, even with my voice, find almost like an airy, like the perfect part to make my voice sit on top of the synth. And I would always laugh with Lewis because I think that my voice is the voice of 1,000 voices in terms of like I can just like
so many
I can just like
you take it and characters and
but it's hard to pick sometimes, you know, and so sometimes it will take me ages to actually lay down a song because I think, well, which part of me is this? With 24 Hour Dog, there is something so incredible about being completely submissive to somebody and having that trust and that submission of your ego, whether that is in a romantic partnership or even creatively. It's why sometimes I've really loved being in films recently, because I just sometimes think, oh, do you know what? Like, I'm a toolbox, just use it. You know, I like to turn up on set and you know, the director has his vision and the director has his script, and it's allowing myself at points just to be like the conduit for that story. And there's something so empowering and powerful about that.
The constant there is when you are taking on a role or a character in a film or whatever, it's the sense of what is there still there, and that is you. Like the bits, because we all play roles, don't we? We're constantly playing roles.
Yeah.
You know, whether we're the daughter or the sister or the teacher or whatever it is. And, you know, to everyone else, we are these compartments of roles. And even if you imagine yourself as a young child and maybe as an older lady, if we ever get there, there's this constant underneath, which is not of an age. It's not of somebody who knows languages, or it's a...
I describe it as this light inside my chest.
Yeah.
I feel that I have like this light inside my chest, and it yearns for things so much bigger than even my human body can. It yearns for things that are more than my human vessel is capable of. I'm not a daredevil in terms of like I don't want to get like high out of my mind to kind of break out of my vessel. Like that doesn't actually do it for me. But some things do in terms of how far can I stretch my body. What movements can I do? How quickly can I move to the music? How high can I sing? How far can I push culture while still having it on my side? And it's like this little light inside my body is telling my vessel, go on, push. Like push a little. How far can we go before something breaks, whether it's a hamstring or someone's tolerance of me on the internet? How far can I just push it? And it makes that little light so happy, because the light is bigger than who I am, and the light is bigger than the whole universe. All of our lights are bigger than the whole
one light.
Universe. It's one huge
light.
giant.
It's bigger than that. And it's just,
And it makes me not feel lonely. When I'm pushing, I suddenly, this feeling of loneliness that I think I've had since a child. I always say I was born very heartbroken. I've always been heartbroken. From my earliest memory. My earliest memories, I always just remember thinking, how lonely, how strange to be here.
Because you feel, because that's so interesting. Well, I have so many thoughts that I want to say, but they're all on top of each other.
Say them on top of each other.
Well, I wanted to talk about the loneliness thing, so I'm going to go back to that in a moment.
Yeah.
The light is, I get it. And I wanted to ask about I wonder if the pushing the boundaries is also that you're not worried about that either. Because if it does fall apart, if you do break yourself within culture or your hamstring, ultimately you'll be fine. And because you and your light are constant, as is everything, all of the other lights, that, the one big light. So maybe there's something in that, like that edge of chaos, that playfulness, that kind of like glint in the eye, is the knowing that ultimately we are insignificant beings and it doesn't really matter anyway, and that's that joyfulness in that recognition that we really aren't of any importance.
Yeah, it's that saying, what is it? We are a drop in the ocean and an ocean in a drop.
Yeah.
You know,
It's beautiful.
yeah.
So this little baba is our microphone. So these are the Mimu gloves, and essentially I wanted to be able to reach into the software in my laptop without having to stare at it, without having to click buttons. So if I want to make a loop, then I can just like catch it in the air, and I can like pan it around, like that, and then I can fade it down, and then delete it. And if I wanted to like add a reverb, basically all it is a microphone. That's all that we're using right now, and just effects within the laptop, within Ableton. So I'm basically, this gesture, like all it says is like closed fist is a certain MIDI number, which then is mapped to like the mute button or the record button within Ableton. So this would be mapped to the reverb send. So here there's no reverb, but over here, and then you can close your fist and it reverses it. And you can spin it around. So if you were to say something,
Eusexua. EUSEXUA. EUSEXUA.
EUSEXUA.
That was crazy.
Thank you. That was quite intense.
That was great.
I love that.
And
No,
it's crazy
God.
that none of you have headphones on,
I
so
have
you
no
just didn't
idea
know
what was
how
going
good
on.
that
That just looked totally random to you.
That was incredible.
So when I was very young, to get through the day, I would spend hours playing the piano. Because when I play the piano, nobody talks to me, don't have to have conversations, don't have to discuss with adults what I should be doing, whatever. I'm being creative and in the moment. And in that time, it goes on for hours and goes by in a flash. And again, it's not really thinking, you're not trying to write a song, you're just in this kind of timeless physical, there's like no space, no time, communion with flow, which is maybe the light, It's the same. And the other day, not the other day, 3 years ago, the guy who said he didn't like the song, we then hung out after that at a couple of events. And one of them was this nuclear bunker, and underground was like maybe 15 people down there, it was really cold. And there was this guy that turned up, and he's called Flesh Licker.
Flesh eater.
Flesh Licker.
Oh, flesh liquor.
Nice.
Nice.
So he had his top off, and it was all red, darkly lit, just a red light. And all he did was play pink noise, really loud, like really, really loud, with a gate. They would just go like that.
Nice, yeah.
And it was just so euphoric and exciting and true and pure. And I had this feeling, and I understood what it was, and it was loneliness.
Oh.
And I'd never felt it before. I literally never felt it,
Yeah.
because I'd always had a communion with music. I've always had this sense of space and time standing still with music. So wherever I go, I always feel this. And so that noise has made me recognise that I can and do and will from now on be that open, timeless, without abandon person as best I can in real life, because that's when the connection can happen to find people with the light, you know.
And that is exactly what I felt in Prague.
Yeah.
And that was exactly my connection with dance music that inspired EUSEXUA, because I realised, I mean, I keep on always saying this lyric from Room of Fools, this room of fools, we make something together with open wounds, we're bleeding out the pressure. Like, that is the feeling of being in this room with all of these people and everyone moving together and everyone like gyrating their bodies and flinging their hair about and stamping their feet, and like it's like they're going to break the concrete of the warehouse. And all of a sudden I felt two things. I felt this is so important to be here right now in this warehouse in Prague all together. This is the most important thing surely that's happening in the whole world right now, A. And B, it made me, well, it reaffirmed, not that I've ever forgotten, it reaffirmed the importance of subcultures and culture in general, because that's what culture is. It's you being born into a family that you can't choose. It's you having a job that is almost there, but not 100% maybe of what you want to do, and the hours that you wouldn't choose, and being locked into this life that is being a human on the hamster wheel. And then it's finding something, whether it is skateboarding, whether it's heavy metal, whether it's ice skating, whether it's surfing, whether it's techno music, like no matter what it is, it's finding that niche thing that you're into and going to a space where potentially you could know nobody, and being around people that connect with you the same way, like in your soul, that you're all yearning for the same thing. You're all yearning for the wave. You're all yearning for the skate park. You're all yearning for the music. And all of a sudden, like, that loneliness disappears. Because that's community.
Yeah, it is the communion with the community, but it is that you have this shared experience of the same feeling, that you are way more. Exactly. In that process of something that you love, that you have found your essence, that is, that if we could just all find more of essence in our lives, and some people have it driving
or more
home.
EUSEXUA.
Or more EUSEXUA even, yes, exactly. That we have like maximum EUSEXUA possibilities, because we all have those moments, but maybe we don't recognise what they are. And it could be in the flow of a conversation. It could be swimming. It could be dancing. It could be skateboarding. It could be sex.
And that is other people's EUSEXUA.
Yeah.
And I've really felt that this experience, EUSEXUA is my album, but other people, I would love it if they experienced their EUSEXUA, and it could literally be making the perfect tea.
Yeah.
You know, you can find EUSEXUA in making the perfect tea, and the way that it's like steeped, and the way that you pour the water and the certain heat, like that is a level of presence that can bring a feeling of EUSEXUA.
Yeah, heightened presence and just, deeply in the moment.
Music scores our lives, and if you're incredibly lucky as an artist, you get an album that scores culture. You know, like the culture of dance music and what EUSEXUA means to me, it has had such a huge impact on my life, and I think for me, EUSEXUA is an offering to my community of FKA Twigs listeners to be affected by EUSEXUA culture now.
Yeah, I mean, that's after though, isn't it? I mean, that's
years after.
Yeah. I mean, the affecting culture and creating this change. But if you were to do that by not actually living that yourself, you know, and that's
you
what really thrives through the record, is this feeling of, I am doing this, like, this is me, I'm not just singing about it or like posturing, I'm really...
No, I had no choice, Imogen, like before EUSEXUA, I was hanging on by an eyelash. I was like...
Right, trying to keep up with the things and go back.
Yeah, no, I was like, you know, I was like, the water was here before EUSEXUA, and now like it's you know, it's gone down. Like EUSEXUA for me, I had no choice. It was a matter. It feels like a matter of survival. It comes back to these 11 pillars that I had to create to be able to make EUSEXUA, and these 11 pillars are there to help me, and then, you know, now I'm giving them to the world, but it helped me all of my life. I cannot make art if I am surrounded by past versions of myself, you know, and it got to the point where I'd open up my closet and it would just be LP1, Magdalene, Capri songs, you know, and I would be like, who am I now? So to be able to get rid of all that stuff at these pop-ups and give those things to my fans, and in a way it's incredible because I know that my fans will archive those things. You know, I know that in a way by giving those things to members of my own community, they're already archived and they're already looked after, and it's in somebody's wardrobe. I mean, that's better than it sitting in a warehouse. Yeah. I think for me, the idea of honing in on design and less is more, it's actually one of the 11, shaping, which is about designing your environment to inspire you in a way, whether that's clearing it out or having certain objects which can inspire you. In the Perfect Stranger music video, I was made into an Alan Jones iconic table. Alan Jones is an amazing artist. He created a lot of work in the 60s and 70s, and he gave me the license to become one of his pieces of work. And of course, I worked very closely with the daughters of Craig Morrison and Craig Morrison Studio to have these amazing rubber spiked chairs that keep on popping up at my raves and EUSEXUA introductory idents. And today we're sitting with this lovely Rick Owens, so.
It's beautiful. No clutter, no stuff.
No stuff, just
like
things that
really
you love. Just really important, simple things that mean something to you.
I find it incredibly hard, but I would like, you could come and help me.
Well, in Hackney, I'll come over.
Exactly, yeah.
We can have each other clear
like
out.
a massive pile of stuff out my front door, and they'll be like, oh yeah, FKA Twigs is doing that.
Thank you for coming today.
Oh, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation
That's been
so
great.
much. Yeah, you're amazing, and I just can't wait for everyone
You're
to hear your record.
amazing.
It's so good. Yeah. Well, you're the best.
Thank you.
That's good.